Hi, everyone. This is Joe Firestone for Empowering Democracy. And my topic for this stream is Biden's past and future. I may be having a surprise guest. I'm not certain yet, but we'll see. We will see. But first, I want to start this by sharing on Facebook. So that takes care of that. And then I want to share with you an article on this topic authored by Robert Reich, Secretary of Labor during the Clinton administration. Probably one of the best, if not the best, cabinet member he had in terms of someone who did his job well. He was also the least conservative member of the Clinton administration. He's a professor at UC Berkeley, of course. So, the title of the piece, have I actually shared it yet? No. So I'm going to take care of that and share it. So the title of the piece is I'll Support Him If He Does. But Joe, please don't run. And Bob Reich starts off by saying, friends, hate to drag you from leftover turkeys back into the world of politics. I'll refrain from the obvious bad joke here. But the question is growing louder about whether Joe Biden should run again for president. Having turned 80 last Sunday, Biden is already the oldest president in American history. Maybe we should, I'm going to interject here. Maybe we should start calling him Der Alte. That means the old one in German. Having turned 80 last Sunday, Biden is already the oldest president in American history. Concerns about his age top the list for why Democratic voters want the party to find an alternative for 2024. But the question, quote, should Joe Biden run again, unquote, is really four different questions. One, has he done a good job so far? Answer, by and large, yes. Now, a few of us may have a disagreement with that answer. But let's hold that for a minute and look at the other questions and answers. Two, should he run again if he wants to? Almost certainly. I think that's somehow connected to one. If you don't think the answer is by and large yes for one, then I suppose the answer to two should probably be almost certainly not. But anyway. Three, will he be the best candidate to beat Trump or whoever the Republicans are likely to nominate? And Bob Wright says, maybe, but let's discuss. Number 4, would he be a capable leader of the United States when he's in his mid 80s? And his answer is possible, but unlikely. As I said before, I don't think concern about Biden's age reflects an ageist prejudice against those who have reached such withering heights. Withering heights, get it? Withering heights. So much as an understanding that people in their 80s do wither. Bob Reich has a great sense of humor. He's proved that time and time again. I speak with a certain authority. I'm 76. I feel fit. I swing, dance, and salsa, and can do 20 push-ups in a row. Yet I confess to a certain loss of, shall we say, fizz. He's really funny. Joe Biden could easily make it until 86 when he'd conclude his second term. After all, it's now thought a bit disappointing if a person dies before 85. My mother passed at 86. My father, 2 weeks before his 102nd birthday. So I'm hoping for the best, genetically speaking. 70 is the number of years of life set out in the Bible. Modern technology and big pharma should add at least a decade and a half. Beyond this is an extra helping, quote, after 80, it's gravy, unquote, my father used to say. Joe will be on the cusp of the gravy train. Where will this end? There's only one possibility, says Bob Reich. As the old saying goes, quote, we won't get out of this alive, unquote. That reality occurs to me with increasing frequency. I find myself reading the obituary pages with ever greater curiosity about how long they lasted and what brought them down. I remember a New Yorker cartoon in which an older reader of the obituaries sees headlines that read only, quote, older than me, unquote, or younger than me, unquote. I confess, I don't go to the obituaries much, even though I'm a bit older than Bob Reich at 83. But when I do happen to encounter an obituary, I do tend to look at it from the point of view as, was he older than me or younger than me? Yet most of the time I forget my age, says Bob Reich. The other day after lunch with some of my graduate students, I caught our reflection in a store window and for an instant wondered about the identity of that little old man in our midst. It's not death that's the worrying thing about a second Biden term. It's the dwindling capacities that go with aging. Quote, a bodily decrepitude, unquote, said Yeats, and quote again, is wisdom, unquote. I have accumulated, says Bob, somewhat more of the former than the latter. But Biden seems fairly spry. Why do I feel I have to add, quote, for someone his age, unquote? I still have my teeth. In contrast to my grandfather, whom I vividly recall storing his choppers in a glass next to his bed, and have so far steered clear of heart attack or stroke. I pray I'm not tempting fate by my stating this fact, but I lived through several kidney stones and a few unexplained fits of epilepsy in my late 30s. I've had both hips replaced, and my hearing is for shit, even with hearing aids. I have a hard time understanding someone talking to me in a noisy restaurant. You'd think, here is my surprise guest. And welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm sorry to pop in at a weird time with you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's not such a weird time, okay, at all. I'm very happy that you have arrived.
Thank you. I'm happy
So
to be here.
Lila Charles Lee, folks, she's an actress.
Yes.
She's a Red Beret.
That's right. Yes, I am. I
She's
have it here somewhere. I have it.
she's a mother of two with a son almost 20 and another son almost 17. And
That's
she's also the co-host of the Punch Up Pod with Pat Coty, sometimes known as Pat the Burner.
yes.
So I am very, very happy that she has decided to join me. I was in the middle of going through an article by Bob Reich on why Biden should not run.
Oh my.
Okay, so I will continue doing that,
Good.
and then we can discuss our opinions as to whether Biden should run or should not run.
Perfect.
Okay, so I was just finishing up a paragraph where Bob Reich says, well, I'll read that whole paragraph again because it's good. I still have my teeth. He just finished saying he's 76. He says, I still have my teeth. In contrast to my grandfather, whom I vividly recall storing his choppers in a glass next to his bed, and have so far steered clear of heart attack or stroke, I pray I am not tempting fate by my stating this fact. But I've lived through several kidney stones and a few unexplained fits of epilepsy in my late 30s. I've had both hips replaced, and my hearing is for shit. Even with hearing aids, I have a hard time understanding someone talking to me in a noisy restaurant. You'd think that the sheer market power of 60 million boomers losing their hearing would be enough to generate at least one set of quiet restaurants. But no, restaurants seem to be as loud as ever, getting louder, in fact. Yeah, I've had that same problem myself. I don't have hearing aids. My hearing is fine so far as I know. But I hate the loud restaurants. They're all over the place. You can't find
Yeah.
a nice, quiet, peaceful restaurant. In fact, even some of the French restaurants are loud now. When I get together with old friends, our first ritual is an organ recital. How's your back? Knee, heart, hip, shoulder, eyesight, hearing, prostate, hemorrhoids, digestion. The recital can run and ruin an entire lunch. The question my friends and I jokingly and brutishly ask one another in college, quote, but getting much, unquote, now refers not to sex, but to sleep. I don't know anyone over 75 who sleeps through the night. Now, I can attest that that's certainly true. Certainly true. I don't want to talk about the number of times I often have to get up during the night. When he was president, Bill Clinton prided himself on getting only about 4 hours, but he was in his 40s then. I also recall cabinet meetings where he dozed off. How does Biden manage? My memory for names is horrible. I once asked Ted Kennedy how he recalled names, and he advised that if a man is over 50, just ask, quote, how's the back? and he'll think you know him. I often can't remember where I put my wallet and keys or why I've entered a room, and certain proper nouns have disappeared altogether. Even when rediscovered, they have a diabolical way of disappearing again. Biden's Secret Service detail can worry about his wallet, and he's got a teleprompter for wayward nouns, but I'm sure he's experiencing some diminution in the memory department. We all know that's true, folks, because we watch Biden and we just see the gaps in memory come up again and again. There are many people who have stated they think that something's wrong with his cognition, and there are many other people who venture to guess that he's well into the Alzheimer's state. Uh, I generally don't have such theories. I just watch and listen and see what happens. So Bob Reich goes on. I have lost much of my enthusiasm for travel and feel, as did by Philip Larkin, that I would like to visit China, but only on the condition that I could return home that night. Air Force One makes this possible under most circumstances. If not, it has a first class bedroom and personal bathroom, so I don't expect Biden's trips are overly taxing. I'm told that after the age of 60, one loses half an inch of height every year. This doesn't appear to be a problem for Biden, but it represents a challenge to me, considering that at my zenith, I didn't quite make it to 5 feet. If I live as long as my father did, I may vanish. He talked earlier, okay, in the article that his father lived until 102. So that's the context of that particular joke. Okay, another diminution I've noticed is fact. A few days ago, is tact, sorry. A few days ago, I gave the finger to a driver who passed me recklessly on the highway. These days, giving the finger to a stranger is itself a reckless act. I guess I have to agree with that. I'm also noticing I have less patience, perhaps because of an unconscious quote use by timer that's now clicking away. Increasingly, I wonder why I'm wasting time with this or that buffoon. I'm less tolerant of long waiting lines, automated phone menus, and Republicans. Cicero claimed, quote, older people who are reasonable, good-tempered, and gracious bear aging well. Those who are mean-spirited and irritable will be unhappy at every stage of their lives, unquote. Easy for Cicero to say. He was forced into exile and murdered at the age of 63. His decapitated head and right hand hung up in the forum by order of the notoriously mean-spirited and irritable Marcus Antonius. How the hell does Biden mean to maintain pact or patience when he has to deal with Mitch McConnell or Joe Manchin and very soon with Kevin McCarthy, for crying out loud? The style sections of the papers tell us that 70s are the new 50s. But septuagenarians are supposed to be fit and alert, exercise like mad, have rip-roaring sex, and party until dawn. Rubbish! Inevitably, things begin falling apart. My aunt, who lived into her 90s, told me, quote, getting old isn't for sissies, unquote. Toward the end, she repeated that phrase every 2 to 3 minutes. Am I repeating myself? I'm doing videos on TikTok and Snapchat. But when my students talk about Ariana Grande or Selena Gomez or Jared Leto, I don't have a clue who they're talking about and frankly don't care. I find myself using words hence, utmost, therefore, Tony, brilliant, that my younger colleagues find charmingly old-fashioned. If I refer to Rosemary Woods or Jackie Robinson or Ed Sullivan or Mary Jo Kopechne, they're bewildered. The culture has flipped in so many ways. When I was 17, I could go into a drugstore and confidently ask for a package of Luckies and nervously whisper a request for condoms. Now it's precisely the reverse. I stopped smoking long ago. Santayana said, the reason that old people have nothing but foreboding about the future is that they cannot imagine a world that's good without themselves in it. I don't share that view. To the contrary, I think my generation, including Bill and Hillary, George W., Trump, Newt Gingrich, Clarence Thomas, Chuck Schumer, and Biden, have fucked it up royally. The world will probably be better without us. On the other hand, I think Nancy Pelosi has done a
Oh my
wonderful
God.
job. What? He says, Joe, please don't run. But if you do, I'll be 100% behind you.
Oh my God.
So, this is easy to comment on.
Ugh.
Okay, I don't know if you had a chance to
I did.
read.
I read the whole piece earlier.
Okay,
Is that what you're going to ask? Yeah.
you read the whole piece area. So
Yeah.
great. So I suppose the first thing that grabbed me was that his answer to Biden's first question: has he done a good job so far? Answer: by and large, yes.
You can kind of stop reading right after that.
Right. Okay, what do you think about that?
I'm so frustrated. His age is the least of Biden's issues. And I do think he's having quite clear cognitive uh, issues at this point, even just, comparing him to a few years ago. And I'm sure you remember in 2019 when there was a huge, roster of people who were put into the primary to take Bernie down. Everybody was very happy to comment on Biden's difficulties remembering. Listen, I have a difficulty and I'm much his junior, but I have a difficulty remembering things. But he sounded sort of like me up there. He was like fishing for words and he'd say, okay, I think I've said enough, and everyone was commenting on it. Cory Booker, um even the pundits on MSNBC. The truth is, if it were Bernie, I would vote for Bernie, on his deathbed. To me, that's not actually the issue that should prevent Biden from running again. So that's where I'll stop. I do not think he's done a good job so far. I'm incredibly frustrated, and to see what's happening right now with the rail workers, I think is outrageous.
Yes, I think that is outrageous, completely in contradiction with his supposed persona,
I mean,
the one
yeah.
that he advertises. But I was so angry at him for various things from the start.
Oh,
Of course,
yeah.
some people would consider my anger at certain things not to be realistic. But I was very angry when he didn't get into office and on the first day mint the $100 trillion coin. Now, I
100%.
know that's an odd opinion, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, just think of what he could have done and what the situation required and still requires, as much as they try to pretend that we're done with COVID. I mean, people are, I think we've lost 20,000 people this month already, November. And
Yes.
in
Okay.
August, 58% of the people who died of COVID were vaccinated. And I'm 100% pro vaccine, but also masking, cleaning the air. So we've let go of every other preventative or protection. I mean, it's a crime against humanity, I think, what he's been allowed to do.
Yes, and we can't fail to mention that his failure to make the vaccines available to other nations
Right.
and have so many people die, okay, in other nations.
Yeah.
We also have to remember that when you look at the total deaths from COVID and the deaths, okay, at the end of Trump's tenure, I believe that Biden has more deaths to his credit now.
700,000.
And he's only completed 2 years.
Yeah.
So to say that he's done a good job of managing COVID,
No.
I mean, that doesn't square with the reality of the situation, okay, at all. And then, of course, there was the American Rescue Plan. And there was the fact that $15 an hour couldn't get through
Right.
because he respected the parliamentarian.
Right. And there, remember, there was reporting that like the week before he had spoken to governors across the country saying it wasn't going to pass anyway. Don't worry.
Ah, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
No,
yes.
he's awful. And he's been awful for 40 years. And I'm sorry, but for Robert Reich to sit here and have this sort of, to me, too cute by half opinion piece about Biden's age being the real issue and that I'll still vote for you and support you no matter what. I mean, we need an opposition party, right?
We need an opposition party, and we need real opposition within the Democratic Party, too.
Yes.
We need them both.
Yeah.
And we don't need people who, should Biden run again? Okay, and he's saying no, but he's also buttering up
Right.
Biden in all kinds of ways. He's not being honest.
No,
And that is frustrating and enraging.
it is raging. And I mean, just a month or two ago, he wrote that Liz Cheney should run for president in 2024. So
Yes.
that is, he's supposed to be a member of the progressive left, Robert Reich, and he's out there saying that Liz Cheney, who voted with Trump 93% of the time, should run under the Democratic ticket. I mean,
What is he thinking? What is he thinking?
I don't know what he's worried he would lose if he were truly critical of Biden and the Democratic Party. Because at this point, he's, what did he say, 74, 76? I mean,
76.
yeah, he's been close to power for a few decades now. I mean, is he worried he won't be invited to the good parties or the Hamptons? Like, what's preventing him from an honest discussion of Biden? I mean, the fact that he says he's done a good job is, sorry, inaccurate. Should he run again if he wants? I mean, like, he's just carrying water for the Democratic Party. And, I hate to say that. I know there's a part of the left that likes to talk about Bernie and the squad as the fraud squad and sheep herders. And I guess I don't think that they have like malicious intent. I don't think that that was necessarily the path they were choosing purposefully. And yet at the end of the day, it's sort of the path they're all taking, these progressives, as they keep paving the way for this neoliberal disaster that we're all living through.
Were you upset at the news that Hakeem Jeffries was going to have the leadership all locked up?
I mean, without a peep from the squad. In fact, endorsing him. I think Jamal Bowman said it would be gangster to have the two leading members of Congress from New York. In a good way. He meant that in a good way. I mean, it's because I think he's just as bad as Pelosi, obviously, and possibly worse because he has many more decades ahead of him.
Yes, possibly worse, and possibly even more conservative than she is on some of the issues.
Yeah.
So that it's infuriated me, the response of the progressives to that,
Yeah.
or the lack of any response of the progressives.
No pushback, no demanding any concessions for their votes.
Well, I don't know what concessions they could get, okay, at this point, because they don't have control of the House. But I mean, what concessions could they get?
I mean, I don't know. Is it committee assignments? Is it just calling him out? I mean, you see that Republicans are already doing that with Kevin McCarthy, and their concessions that they're asking for might be toothless, but at least, so far the only people in the Democratic Party who've spoken out against Nancy Pelosi are the so-called centrist Democrats, the corporate Democrats. And then they just continue to flourish. Nobody's ever worried. There's this thing where it's like the tone policing and the civility politics police who say, well, when the left talks like that, it just makes me want to go further right. But they never talk about how when the right talks like this or embraces fascism, it makes me want to go further left. So we all know it's just an excuse to keep, siding with their corporate donors. Um, I don't know. I think they could at least speak out. Okay, if you're going to get nothing, let's talk about Medicare for all. I mean, Jeffries labels himself a progressive, which that word has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, he's a member of the caucus.
Yeah, which is just paying a little bit of money. I mean, so is Chantel Brown, and they lined up behind her instead of Nina Turner, the
I know.
squad did, right?
That
So
was terrible.
it's terrible.
That
And
just drove me crazy. And they lined up also in concert with the DMFI, okay, and APAC
yep.
as well. And they didn't seem to consider it any kind of contradiction to what they're supposed to be about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating and revealing. I mean, it really should be instructive for all of us moving forward. I think that, again, though, looking at somebody like Robert Reich writing this piece, what is he hoping to gain from this? I'm not really sure exactly what his objective is. Is it like gently to shepherd Biden away? He's not doing it in this piece, really. He's just sort of poking fun of age, and age is not my primary concern with Biden. It really isn't. I don't think it's anybody's primary concern. I mean, people didn't want to vote for him. They wanted to vote against Trump. We know that. They were historically unpopular. He continues to be historically unpopular. And unfortunately, I think that the Pied Piper strategy has really worked for Democrats. If they're constantly falling over themselves to placate the right, building them up, putting, what was it, $53 million into MAGA candidates in the midterms, and all of those people were defeated. So it's just like the self-fulfilling. So Democrats think they did something right. I mean, forget that they lost big time in 2016, but this always being the lesser evil party is working out for them. So I don't know. It really is discouraging that somebody like Robert Reich can't be honest even now.
Yes. It's a commentary on the state of our politics.
Yeah.
Okay. It's also, okay, it's just so about the style that has come to characterize our politics,
Yeah.
and especially inside of the Democratic Party. And for those of us who feel that change must come and that it must come very, very quickly, this kind of thing is really poisonous. It is
Yes.
poisonous because he should be telling us the truth about the Biden administration. He should be doing whatever he can do to run Biden out,
Yep.
because from the standpoint of what we need, if we were to have another term of Biden, we just could never get there on time.
Yep.
I mean, our world is in very serious straits right now. With
Yes.
another 4 years of Biden, it's going to be terrible. And of course, no one is saying that's an argument for the Republicans.
Right. Right.
4 years of them,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
would certainly be at a minimum just as bad and likely much worse. But that is not an argument for Biden,
No.
because there are so many other candidates, potential candidates, who would be much better. And to make statements like, uh, okay, if he runs again, I don't know if he said no Democrat ought to run against him. I don't know if he went that far. Okay, but the idea was basically, well, if he wants to run, we certainly shouldn't be opposing him. And that's ridiculous.
Well, maybe he's an accelerationist. Maybe he knows that Biden would not hold up well in a debate. I mean, that one debate with Bernie that he lasted 2 hours on the stage. I know he was lying through his teeth, but I couldn't believe that he was able to make it that whole time. I don't know that he would be able to do that again in 2 more years.
Yes, but also he wasn't outstanding in that particular debate
Right.
either. He was, very mediocre. He didn't make any key points. I don't think he won the debate either.
No, me neither. But I didn't think he'd be able to even like endure that amount of time on stage, because the other debates where there were more people, more candidates on stage, he was like embarrassingly bad. He would stop mid-sentence. He'd say, "Oh, I'm over my time. Go on. Oh, I shouldn't say that." He flubbed a lot of lines, and they must have. I mean, sorry, because I am of the mind that he is really on the decline. I think they really must have shot him up with something to get him through that appearance. I don't think he'd be able to do it in 2 years, but so then what do you do? Because what's the bench? There is no left bench right now of somebody that Robert Reich would get behind. I mean, I know that Gavin Newsom's positioned himself as this progressive Democratic possible contender, but he won't run if Biden runs, and he's already, given his assurance that he'll be Team Biden. But Newsom wouldn't be any better, really. I mean, Newsom, talks a good game, but the truth is, all of the things that people on the wide left, liberals, corporate Democrats, said they cared about under Trump, many of those appalling policies Biden's continued, whether it's the kids in cages, the deportations, the Iran nuclear deal that we still haven't joined. I mean, so they really are sort of all just never Trumpers. And if that's your only ideology, I don't know. I don't know where that really leaves us as the left.
I think it leaves us with a question, okay, or a couple of questions. Well, maybe before we get to that question, we should also talk about the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room, it seems to me, is the war, the Ukraine war at this point, and the Biden foreign policy generally, the heating up of conflicts with China at the
Yep.
same time that he's trying to do opposition to Russia. He puts us into a risk position with respect to nuclear war for
Yep.
the first time, okay, in decades.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that about?
And
And
again,
how?
there's no progressive speaking out against that. They're trying to silence dissent. I mean, it's really terrifying, actually. Where's the peace brigade?
Well, the Peace Brigade has begun to make some noise now in quite a number of the countries, uh,
Right.
certainly. And there are commentators, okay, on YouTube, okay,
Right.
especially some military commentators
Yeah.
who are telling us all what folly it is, and in detail, with military detail,
Right.
that sort of thing is certainly going on. But people aren't drawing the conclusion that this alone means that Joe Biden has been a terrible president.
Yeah.
To risk a nuclear war, okay, over this, and not just that, but to maneuver the situation so that Russia is backed up against the wall,
Yep.
thus causing that risk to come forward. That is terrible management of foreign policy.
Yes, it is.
That's all that you conclude. And all our lives are at risk because he's managing foreign policy in this way. And
Yes.
someone has the nerves to say that he's been pretty good so far.
Yeah.
That is nothing. Okay, but to get to the other really large question, okay, at this point, uh, I suppose that question is there a sleeper candidate somewhere in the Democratic Party, okay, or outside, who would be willing to step up and who could possibly have a chance to win?
You know,
Ah,
I don't know if we know that person yet. I think of somebody like, I think Sarah Nelson and Nina Turner could be a great pair, like fiery, smart, vibrant, young, especially in comparison to I think they could handle the DeSantis's and the Trumps beautifully on stage. I love their politics. But see, a letter like this is really meant to cut any possible insurgent candidate off at the knees to me. I mean, that's really what he's doing, because he could be getting behind even just a vague idea of a challenger of what this country needs. As you said, we don't, with climate, with war, with healthcare. I mean, all of these issues, I don't know, I'm sure you've noticed that on Twitter now, after the midterms, once again, people are talking about, the squad, Jayapal and Ro Khanna are talking about Medicare for all. I don't think they talked about it in the last 2 years.
No.
Right. So now that they're out of power and there's no chance of it passing, now they can be the good lefty guys again.
Yeah.
And
I guess we can expect them to be the good lefty guys again for some time to come.
Yeah, right.
Right? For some time to come, as long as they can't do anything anyway.
Yes.
They can say all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But from a posture where people are saying all kinds of things because they're not in power, can a sleeper candidate emerge from that kind of situation? Okay, I don't know if Bernie wants to run again, okay, or if he would venture to take it.
Yeah.
Considering that he's about to get a committee chairmanship that he wanted for his whole life.
Right.
But also, since he is old also, there's the question of how long he can go.
Yeah.
The stroke he had wasn't a serious one, but it was worrying.
Yeah.
It certainly was.
I mean, he's out there, doing rallies, and he seems to have a ton of energy. And again, for me, it's not the age issue. It's where will the votes happen? Where will he galvanize the troops? Unfortunately, and I love Bernie. I mean, it was like a part-time job for me for 2 years during this past election cycle. I hate to say it, I wouldn't do that again if what's going to happen is he just caves to his good friend Joe, and he's already said he wouldn't run against Biden anyway. I think we need somebody who's not afraid of the social and political consequences. By the way, I don't think there would be true political consequences. I mean, a majority of our country, Democrat, Republican, Independent, are wildly supportive of all of Bernie's policies, of all of the so-called, left, social democrat, whatever, however you want to phrase it, policies. So that's a winning strategy. And we saw that even in the midterms, right? And we saw in 2020, the Democrats who were not vocally supportive of Medicare for all, most of them lost their elections. So, but I do think there is that class loyalty. And, it's like when Alan Dershowitz said how sad he was, not that he had cavorted with a known child rapist, but that he wasn't getting invited to the parties in the Hamptons anymore. I mean, I do think that figures pretty largely in a certain segment of the population over there in DC. And Robert Reich, unfortunately, seems to, I don't know who is speaking out against Biden right now.
There is nobody on the Democratic side speaking out against Biden.
No.
It's all independent media.
Yeah.
That's only where you find it. But if Biden decides he doesn't want to run, then there may be all kinds of candidates who step forward. So the question is, would Bernie step forward again? Or would somebody else carrying the Bernie flag step forward? And who would that be? And would that person be effective?
Yeah.
You mentioned Sarah Nelson, okay, and Nina Turner. They would be dynamite candidates. Yeah, they certainly would be.
Yeah.
Someone who doesn't look like a dynamite candidate, but on policy, who is very good, is but Jeff Merkley. He
Yeah.
always votes with Bernie,
Right.
okay, on all of the different issues. Uh, so he seems to be a Bernieite. I
Right.
mean, what
Right.
else can you say about him?
I mean, Bernie didn't seem like he was going to go far when he first made his announcement in 2015. So we maybe don't know who that person who could sort of get the excitement of the left back. I think the squad's done a lot of damage and Bernie these last few years because even if you don't take corporate money, but then you vote with the corporate Democrats all the time, I don't know. I feel like there's a large segment of the left that really feels disenfranchised and has been reminded that our democracy isn't really a democracy. Yeah.
Okay, I noticed a comment from my daughter in here. Okay, I don't know when she got in. I'll check that out. Hi, Steve. Hi, Steve Day. Steve Day says hemorrhoids. And Devora says, I remember in 2008 when Biden was dynamic, a different man now. Well, there is certainly differences in terms of the dynamism. Yeah, he is a complete different man now. Then Devora also said later, Steve Wolfbrand says Hunter and Joe will be investigated for their corruption. Yeah, the Republicans are probably going to do that, certainly. Make a lot of noise about it.
Yeah.
Costart says they'll vote for more Nazi funding in a heartbeat. By the way, Ghostart's name, the first name, is also Steve. So we have a number of different Steves here. Devora says Sarah Silverman is growing, but she's had so many bad calls, including sheepdogging for the Democrats. That's certainly true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Iran just ratified documents on joining the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Yeah, it certainly seems as though they're going for BRICS in a big way right
Yeah.
now. Steve Wolfram says, I would love to see Jimmy Dore run just to see him in debates. That would be quite funny.
Yep.
Quite funny. The left has left the Dems behind, says Steve Ghostart. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely true.
It is true. And unfortunately, in the end, when we talk about activism and the inside outside strategy, you still want to pick the best target for your activism, right? Like in the end, we do still need people, elected officials, who can legislate. And so to have such a huge number of leftists sort of walk away from the electoral process, I think is worrying. I understand it. I mean, I totally understand it, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I've been trying to push. Now we're calling it the dump the corruption idea rather than
I
dump
like it.
incumbents because so many of the people running against the incumbents are just as bought.
Yeah.
You can't have them in either.
Right.
So dump the corruption is really more like it. Okay,
I
at this
like that.
point. So Kay Ryan is asking who you are. Were you here at the beginning?
Hi, Kay. Hi. I'm Lila Charles Lee, and I'm so happy to be a guest on your show today. This is fun. I like dissecting this article and all the trouble that lies beneath it.
Okay, so Kay, with respect to Lila, she's the co-host of the Punch Up Pod show, and she's also a Red Beret and has been quite active in support of the Red Berets.
Yeah.
And she's been quite active for years for Bernie, okay, as well.
I know I just came across, and just to plug my show with Pat, it is on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock Pacific. And we talk about all of these issues of the week, and we drink a lot as we try to find some community and fun as we discuss the nightmare of our of our current situation. So it's a little more lighthearted, but
It's a little more lighthearted than I usually have.
well, no, I mean, we're still like angry and all of that, but you are so wonderfully on topic. And sometimes I admit, as we are into our third or fourth servings, we can sometimes go a little off topic, but it is a political show, we're just trying to have a little bit more fun. I came across a picture of my son in 2016 when we were canvassing for Bernie, drawing a big Bernie like stenciled outline. I mean, he did it by hand, but on the sidewalk with chalk as we were canvassing, and it kind of broke my heart a little. Those were the days when I had hope. Give me hope, Joe. Where's the hope?
Okay, I'll try to give you hope. We're going to get Dump the Corruption going over
I like that.
years. We're going to do that. Okay, if we can do that, we can make a whole big change in 2000. Yep. Okay, in 24. Okay, Devora, it just so happens that the two of you live 15 minutes apart.
Oh, that's right. I know. I just found that out. That's awesome.
Okay, and so I'm going to be in touch with you to broker, a meeting.
That sounds good.
Because I think
we'll touch grass, as we're so often advised by the people who don't like the online left. Go out there and touch grass. We'll meet in person. Yes. And I see Steve. Hello. Go Start. Yes, with Pat the Burner. My dear friend is the other person I do the show with on Wednesdays.
Yes, which, by the way, I'm so glad that you promoted that show, because Pat is also really wonderful.
He's amazing.
And he's been wonderful for a number of years now.
Yes.
And Steve says, bring your own booze to the punch-up pod.
Yes, bring a lot of it. Pat and I will prep all day on Wednesday. And at a certain point, we look at each other and just say, after reading all the articles and uploading all of the content, we went like, but then the most important thing is, do you have your alcohol ready by the side of your computer? Let's go.
Okay, so I think we are done with the comments. And I think we're done with the show. And I think you all certainly know how we feel about whether Joe Biden ought to run again. Oof. And why we feel he should not. So I think that is probably it for now.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love your show, and I love your attention to detail. I think it's really important. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lila, and I hope you'll keep on coming on.
I would love it.
It will be very wonderful to have you. And I'll get the two of you together very shortly.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, Lila.
Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, bye, folks.